Good morning, Minister Jennifer Murnane O'Connor, distinguished guests, elected representatives, members of the Irish Men's Shed Association, colleagues, partners, supporters and friends. On behalf of the Irish Men's Shed Association and Tullow Men's Shed, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all this morning. We're delighted to see so many people here mark what is an important milestone for our organisation as we launch our strategic plan. Men's sheds have become a vital part of communities across Ireland. They provide connection, purpose, friendship and support for thousands of men while making a significant contribution to the communities they serve. Today's launch is not about a document, it's about setting a direction for the future for the men's shed movement, ensuring that we continue to grow, develop, positively impact the lives of men and continue across Ireland for the next 5 years. Before we begin, I would like to thank Tullow Men's Shed for hosting us here today and for the warm welcome they've extended to everyone attending. To officially welcome us to their shed, it's my pleasure to invite the Chairman of Tullow Men's Shed, Mr. Frank Clark, to address us.
Thank you so much. I have a little speech, not going to be too long. You want to hear my big Dublin voice, but I'd like to welcome everybody here today to Tullow Men's Shed. Just a little bit about Tullow Men's Shed. Our shed has been going since 2011, and we moved into this building, which was an old health centre in 2017. And last year we were fortunate enough to receive 2 grants, as you see this fine building here, and we got all the work done, and thanks to the people's support, especially Carlow County Council. We have 31 members, and we're probably one of the most unique men's sheds in the country because, as you see, we have a lot of young lads, and we have a big members that are full-time employees. So we pride ourselves on friendship, and we welcome everybody to Tullow Men's Shed. The response we see from Tullow and the business community and all the local councillors, TDs, and especially the departments in Carlow County Council and the PPN, we wouldn't be able to be here today only for the support of all that. We're honoured and delighted to have you here in the Tullow Men's Shed, and honoured to be choosing to host this new strategy plan. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and as we say in Tullow Men's Shed, no one is a stranger for long. Friendship is the heart of everything we do, and thank you so much for coming.
Frank and the members of Tullow Men's Shed are an excellent example of what can be achieved when people come together with a shared sense of purpose and community spirit. The success of the Men's Shed movement is built on local sheds like this one. We can also be supported by strong leadership and governments at national level. To speak about the vision and direction of the Men's Shed Association, it gives me great pleasure to invite Chairman of the IMSA Board, Dylan MacDonald. Dylan.
Good morning, and thank you, Morris, for the introduction, and thank you for the work on organising the event this morning. Thank you all for joining us for the launch of the Irish Men's Shed Association Strategic Plan 2030. To begin with, I would like to extend a particularly warm welcome and special thanks to Minister Jennifer Murnane O'Connor for joining us here this morning. We are delighted that you're able to join us for the official launch of the IMSA Strategic Plan 2026 to 2030. I'd also like to welcome Peter Clear of Fianna Fáil, Catherine Callahan of Fine Gael, for continued support by this government for both the Irish Men's Sheds Association and the men's sheds throughout the country. Thank you, Frank Morris, Chairman of the Tullow's Men's Sheds, and all the members of the Tullow Shed for hosting us here this morning. It's a fantastic place to launch a new strategic plan. We're delighted to be here this morning, and I myself am looking forward to chatting with you a little bit more later, Frank, and learning more about the work the shed does. And judging by the Facebook page, there's some really great activities that I'm looking forward to learning about. Thank you also to representatives of the Departments of Health and the HSE who are here with us this morning. The continued support for you for the IMSA and the men's sheds is integral to delivering our mission and supporting sheds throughout the country. I'd also like to thank the representatives who are here with us this morning from ADMAN, CERTA and TD, who have been and are significant supporters of the IMSA and the men's sheds, providing pivotal support and initiatives. And to all our stakeholders and supporters, public and private, on behalf of the board, I would like to offer you a very sincere and wholehearted thank you for your support. My final thanks for now go to Crow Consulting, who shepherded the organisation and the board through the strategic planning process. When preparing for this address this morning and rereading through the strategic plan that we are launching, I found myself reflecting on the process and the journey we've been on. With clarity when I say we in this context, I'm really collectively and interchangeably referring to either myself or all of myself, the board and the IMSA. And by way of a little background, I joined the board in 2021 and took on the role of chair a little over 12 months ago. But when this process was initiated, I was chair of the Strategic and Engagement Committee. And it's really something to think that it's not quite, but it's almost 2 years since we first had a conversation about the process that the IMSA would follow to develop this strategic plan. As with any plan, not everything always went 100% according to the initial plan or timeline. But we always course corrected, adapted, and held true to the essence of the process. The output of which is a strategic plan Minister Murnane O'Connor will officially launch later. Well, the process for this plan was initiated almost 2 years ago and concluded last year. Its roots go a little deeper than that. The previous strategy was focused on the development of the sheds across the country. However, in the interim period of when that plan was developed and when this planning process was initiated, a significant event that we're all too familiar with occurred, the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic, as we know, had an immediate systemic impact throughout all of our communities. And men's sheds and shedders were significantly impacted. Early on when I joined the board, we had a lot of lengthy conversations around the legacy of the impact that COVID-19 had on men's sheds and shedders themselves. Therefore, in 2022, the IMSA hosted 8 regional men's shed network meetings throughout the country. These were run by the IMSA staff and volunteers and were attended by hundreds of sheds and shedders. As you may imagine, the outputs of these meetings were extensive and considerable. But they also provided, at a pivotal moment, the views and perspectives of sheds and shedders, which we were later able to directly feed into the strategic planning process. Men's sheds have more than bounced back since the negative impact of COVID-19, and in doing so have demonstrated how resilient the men's shed movement is. Today there are more men's sheds than ever before, and numbers are above the pre-pandemic levels. But the world has changed since and evolved. And in an ever-evolving world, organisations need a long-term planning strategic check-in every so often. The board of the IMSA has been walking shoulder to shoulder on their journey to develop this strategic plan. And it is my feeling that the plan we will be launching later today is a challenging but achievable plan. It will stretch and push the organisation. And this is not a pitch, but it is one of the reasons why the continued support of so many in this room today, and many more who are unable to attend, is pivotal to achieving and delivering this strategic plan. And more so, the vision, the mission, and the values that within this plan, and developed with intent to guide the strategic plan, are not top-down views of the board developed in isolation, but developed in conjunction with the CEO, the IMSA staff, through the process shepherded by Pro Consulting. And more so, these and the outputs in the plan, the details of which our CEO Enda will bring you through shortly, go beyond reflecting what the board and the IMSA thinks it should be doing, but reflect what so many shedders said they wanted in those regional consultations back in 2022. The IMSA's mission to support, advocate and promote men's sheds across the island of Ireland, enhancing well-being and building stronger and more sustainable communities. And that is what I feel this strategic plan will achieve. And if for some unknown reason we do not fully achieve our vision of a network of men's sheds across the island of Ireland, offering men the opportunity to enhance connection, well-being, lifelong learning and community, all the efforts to deliver this strategic plan will advance us one more step towards our objective. Finally, and to conclude, I would like to return to where I began, and that is thanks. On this occasion, a thank you to you, the staff of the IMSA. I would particularly like to thank you all for the contributions, inputs, and involvements in development of the strategic plan. It's a far stronger plan with these inputs. I'd also like to thank you for all the fantastic work that you do on an ongoing basis to deliver the mission to support sheds throughout the country. And finally, I would like to thank ENDA on behalf of myself and the board for all the work done on developing the strategic plan and leading the IMSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Strong governance and leadership are essential to any successful organisation. But turning vision into reality requires commitment, hard work, and effective delivery. Over the past number of years, the Irish Men's Shed Association has continued to grow its reach, strengthen its partnerships, and expand the supports available to sheds across the country. Much of that progress has been guided by the leadership of the CEO. Please join me in welcoming Enda Egan, the CEO of the Irish Men's Shed Association.
Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome here on a lovely morning to Carlow down in the, I suppose I can say, the sunny southeast. And very welcome to Minister Murnane O'Connor and to the deputies and county councillors that we have with us here this morning. Firstly, I just want to give us a very quick kind of overview of the Men's Sheds Association and how the movement is looking at the moment right across the country. And currently we have 484 sheds in the Republic of Ireland. There are about another 120 in Northern Ireland, of which 60 would be affiliated to the Irish Men's Sheds Association. We have, since COVID, sheds are growing at about a rate of 22 per year. At the point of COVID, we were of the view that sheds probably would not grow that much after COVID, and that was really a wrong judgment call at that particular time. What has happened since then, and it is very evident to see that sheds that are opening up since COVID are very much social sheds. Prior to COVID, the workshop and the kind of activities of doing something with your hands within the shed was probably the main priority. That may have come from the initiation of sheds that probably took place in around the last economic downturn, when you had a lot of people maybe unemployed from the construction industry. But what we can see since COVID is that sheds are very much social orientated. That's not to say that there aren't workshops there, but the focus within those sheds on the majority of occasions are absolutely socially orientated. The shed movement, as people will know, has come originally from Australia. It moved into Ireland in around 2009. The Irish Men's Shed Association as an organisation was established in 2011. And what we see and what we find is that when men, I suppose, come into a men's shed, there's something unique in there that you don't necessarily find anywhere else. It isn't necessarily identifiable, and it's not necessarily easy to pinpoint whatever that actually is. But when men come into a shed, they talk about things that they wouldn't necessarily talk about at home, that they wouldn't necessarily talk about to their partner, that they wouldn't necessarily talk about to their doctor. But when you get the engine of a lawnmower and you throw it up on a bench and 4 or 5 guys get around it to fix that, you find conversations start to flow, conversations start to develop, and they start to discuss and talk about things that they wouldn't necessarily talk about anywhere else. It is quite difficult to identify what that kind of magic dust is, but we do know that it's there, and we do know that it is very effective and it works quite well. I suppose for many men, the shed enters into their life at a point of transition. That can usually be around retirement, it can be recovery from an illness, it can be after the loss of a loved one. There is usually some point of transition in which a man considers going into a shed. I always remember very vividly being at the Tullow match the year before last year. This man came to us, and he was from Kilkenny. He was a farmer. He was in his mid-70s. He was in the process of giving his farm over to his nephew. And he was just making the point that for him, the postman was probably his main contact with the outside world. That was probably now going to diminish. It had already diminished because everything now is on your mobile phone. Everything is done electronically. But he was just making the point that it was really going to be him. It was going to be the dog. It was going to be the marmalade and the toast every morning looking out through a window. And he felt he was too young to go into the local shed. And if by being at that ploughing match meant the difference of getting that man into that shed, that's a huge achievement. And events like what we have this morning and other events where we can publicise the importance of the shed is a really important thing that we need to do in society. The World Health Organization and one of their reports from last year indicates that the thing that helps people to live longer is not something that you find on your doctor's prescription. It's not something that you find when you go into your local chemist. It's a thing called happiness. And happy people, according to the World Health Organization, live longer. Now I know somebody's going to say there's somehow contrary so-and-so that lives beside me and he'll outlive the whole lot of us. And maybe that's the case, there's always one. But in general, the point is that happiness is what helps you to live longer. And what's happiness? So if you start looking at that and you start to say, well, what makes people happy? Generally, it's a number of things, but connection is a very important one. A sense of belonging, a sense of feeling that you have a purpose in life. Having friends around you is really important. That connection to the outside community cannot be understated. And that is something that the men's shed in this country is serving a huge purpose of creating that connection. And when you find something that grows and develops from the ground up, then it is meeting the need of people at community level. And the men's shed is obviously doing that. And at the way it's going at the moment, by probably mid next year, we're going to have over 500 sheds in the Republic of Ireland. We do have the highest number of sheds per head of population anywhere in the world. So there's a reason for that. The shed is meeting a need at local level. And it is probably an appropriate time to thank the Minister, thank Fergal Fox is here in front of me from the HSE, for the support that they have given to the organisation over the years to support sheds. Also the men's shed grant coming from the Department of Community and Rural Development from Minister Cleary is a really, really important thing, because you know what it does? It just keeps the lights on, it pays the rent, it pays the rates, it pays the heating bills, it pays the insurance. Just simple things like that helps to keep the shed open. So the shed is a really, really important thing at community level. I would probably say, somebody can claim I'm wrong on this, but I would probably say there wouldn't be a window box or a flower box anywhere in any of the communities. The tidy towns depend a huge amount on the men's shed. Sports clubs depend a huge amount on the men's shed. Local churches, local retirement groups, local schools, a lot of the sensory gardens that you see taking place in local schools. The men's sheds are a huge part in many communities. So it's not just about what the shed does for the men that are in there, it's what it does for their families, but it's also what it does for communities. And the government, in fairness, recognise that. Obviously, I'm going to say they need to do more, but we are certainly on the right track in terms of that. People often say around, strategy, we're here this morning to launch a strategic plan, and people often say, what is strategy? It's one of those things. So I have here with me this morning, there isn't one for everybody in the audience, but there are just a few little props to explain strategy and how good strategy sometimes works. and how everybody is affected by strategic planning in your day-to-day life that you don't necessarily even know about. In terms of strategies that's gone completely wrong, here we have the Nokia 1100, the biggest selling phone in the world. People go, what? Sure, that surely must be one of the Apple phones. No, it's this little yoke here, the biggest selling phone in the world. The second biggest selling phone in the world is the Nokia 1110, its first cousin. But yet the Nokia company doesn't exist. And why is that the case? And it's the case because they got their strategy wrong. Their strategic planning was wrong. They were doing so well. This thing was selling in bucket loads. Nobody could touch it. And what they did was they kept their focus on this thing, on the handset, while others went out there and they researched Apple and Samsung. And their research was telling them that they needed to move to an integrated phone that had all the apps on it, that had the software that allowed you to have a touchscreen. And when Nokia went out of business, there's the famous quotation from the CEO where he breaks down in tears and he said, you know, we did nothing wrong, but yet we lost. And obviously to this day, when you're in all the big universities and they're doing the marketing, there's a lot of focus on what they actually did wrong. Because obviously, you know, they did sell out the brands to Microsoft, but they went out of business, and today this is still the phone that has the most amount of sales in the world. In terms of good strategy, there isn't one for everyone in the audience, but most people will look at this thing and they'll say, oh yes, that's a John Deere tractor. How come John Deere are the company with the biggest turnover in the world and the biggest profits for the sale of tractors and other equipment? So if you go back into the 70s, John Deere put a strategy in place, and their strategy was that when every child in America left kindergarten, which is 5 years of age, they would know their primary colours. And their primary colours would be blue, red, yellow, black. John Deere. When they would see green, they wouldn't actually say green, they would say John Deere. And in 2017, John Deere did a survey of adults. They walked out on the street, took the branding off of this thing, and they said to adults on the street, what's that, Joe? And everybody said, 98% responded, it's a John Deere. The other 2% didn't even know the tractor. So John Deere have done something right. Now these guys, who are New Holland, they come along and they say, how are we going to try and get a bigger slice of the market? How are we going to do that? So their strategy is, we're going to put one of these, or two of these, or three of these into every agricultural college, and we're not going to charge them for it. We're going to give them free. And in turn for that, we're going to invest huge amount of money into agricultural research. So they went, and you will see most of the agricultural colleges in Ireland, the students are driving diesels. You will see in England, in all the agricultural colleges, the students are driving diesels. Not because it just happened that way, because somebody, when they sat down developing a strategic plan, said, we're going to strategize on how we do this. Or we're going to go to the departments, we're going to go to the government, or we're going to say, we're going to give you guys money for research in agriculture. But for that, we want you to allow us to put these yokes free into the colleges, so the students get to drive them. When they go back home to their farms, they don't buy these yokes, they buy these yokes. So that's just a little, I suppose, a little piece of understanding of how strategy works. Obviously, Irish Men's Sheds Association are not going making tractors. So in terms of strategy for us, what are we doing? What's in our new strategic plan, okay? So our new strategic plan is going to look across 4 particular areas. The first one is, how do we sustain the men's shed movement? How do we sustain this? How do we make sure that this movement continues to grow and it's continued to be supported? But one of the things we have to do is we got to look at how we get more men into the sheds. Because we're here this morning, the shed here has, 25, 30 members, but there is so many more men out there that can benefit from this shed, and the same in every other shed. So you could come in with a crane, you could lift this shed this morning, and you could plant it on any crossroads around the country, and it will work. But how do we get more men in there? So that's one of the things as a strategy that we will be looking for. We'll be looking for national campaigns to drive men into sheds and to help them to realise the benefits of being in the shed. But it's not just men who are at retirement age. We need to get younger men into sheds, and we need to look at the succession within sheds. Most chairmen will know that when the AGM comes up, and if you want to clear the room, there's one way to do it, and that's ask people if they want to be a chair, and you can be sure the door frame will come off as everybody stampedes out. So we need to ensure that people are trained and that we've got good succession planning, and that's a role for us as an organisation. In terms of financial sustainability, the grant is there at the moment. We need to look at ways how we make that more accessible. We need to look at ways how some other core costs within the shed are allowed within that, and obviously moving the value of the grant, which is at €3,000, to move that up. We as an organisation are looking at ways on how we engage with sheds around the country. How do we ensure that we are speaking on behalf of sheds, that there is a legitimate process that sit behind that, and also developing sheds as self-advocates, where, and obviously, as you can see here this morning, Tullow is probably a shed that can educate a lot of other sheds in respect of that. But we need to ensure that sheds at local level are empowered to engage with the political system, to engage with the representatives, so that everybody is aware of the importance of the shed to men, but also within the communities. One of our other strategic priorities is around the development of the Irish Men's Sheds Association. Again, as I said, we will be looking very carefully at how we represent sheds, what processes we have in place in terms of that. We want to establish a national hub somewhere in the Midlands, probably in Tullow, where we have our national office there, but with that we have examples of what different kind of sheds look like. Many sheds start off, as guys here this morning will know, our friends from our DK shed over in Kilkenny. Many sheds start off as a porticabin, and they work from there and they build out. And that whole process of being able to bring people, because very often the very first question that a community asks when it's looking at establishing a men's shed is, what actually is it? Is it actually a shed? It can be a community centre. It can be a whole load of things. It very often starts off as a porticabin. So we're looking at having a physical place where there can be 2 or 3 options of what a shed might look like. That's very important for communities that are looking at establishing a shed. Research. What we do, what we decide to do, must be evidential based. We need really good quality research to look at all the kind of components of sustainability of a shed. Finance is one of the things. Membership is another one. Sustainable succession is another one. There's a whole range of things that needs to be looked at under a really comprehensive piece of research. How sheds are supported by this organisation. Sheds need support in the shed. It's okay for some sheds to have kind of network meetings, but for a lot of sheds, they need that support. They need somebody coming into the shed. That needs an organised, paid staff of regional coordinators on the ground that's there to go into the shed and give that support where it is needed. Advancing men's health is another key priority for us. The implementation of the Men's Health Action Plan. I would appeal to the Minister here this morning. We're heading into the process of budget planning and estimates. The department, I think, is doing a really good job in supporting the Men's Health Action Plan, but we certainly need to keep driving that, because that's a really, really good initiative for this country. We're one of the only countries in the world that actually has such a thing. So the implementation of that is really good. We need to provide support to sheds around social prescribing. Social prescribing is something that's new and developed over the last couple of years. Loads of people get socially prescribed to sheds. Some people understand what that means, but it shouldn't be left there. There needs to be support for the sheds to help the individuals that are socially prescribed to sheds. That's a really big one from our point of view. And new mental health initiatives that we get to roll out within sheds, and delighted that some really good work has been done on that through the Men's Health Action Plan. And the last point that we're working on is around amplifying the UN Sustainable Goals. There are 17 of them for anyone who knows. There's probably 3 or 4 in there that's really important to us as an organisation. One being around the good health and well-being for all citizens, sustainable cities and communities, and the last one being around climate action. And we as an organisation will be looking at having some big national project that we can roll out among sheds and gain real rich experience and knowledge from one of those projects, and then roll that out among other sheds around the country. Some really good work going on in sheds in relation to recycling, in relation to we'll say the circular economy, in relation to pollination. Most sheds have a horticultural piece. Many are involved in community gardens. There's a lot of work that we can do in terms of, as I said earlier on, with some schools. That's happening in a lot of places, but we'll be looking at rolling out those kind of projects. Simple things like solar panels for sheds. There's a really, really important piece of work that we can do around all of that. So that's very much a kind of a thumbnail sketch of what's within the strategic plan. There's a lot more than that, but we'll be here all morning and you'll be quite bored by the time I'll be finished with it. But I think our really important call this morning to Minister Jennifer Murnane O'Connor, who has a really good reputation of having the sleeves tightened up and looking at a practical way of how you solve things. And one of the things that we would call on her this morning to help with is bringing her department and Department of Rural and Community Development together to look at this in a holistic kind of all of government kind of way, not in separate silos, but there's a lot of work that can be done by just the departments coming together, seeing where the synergies are. There are some low-hanging fruit there, and picking some of those up. So again, a huge thank you for the Minister for coming this morning. Thank you to everybody for coming along here this morning, and again to Frank and to the shed at local level, to Morris and to all our staff who will be the key people who will be helping to implement the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Enda. Today we have heard about the journey of the Men's Shed movement, the vision for its future, the ambitions contained within the strategic plan. The Irish Men's Shed Association enjoys strong support from government and many elected representatives who recognise the invaluable contribution men's sheds make to the health and well-being of the men and the strength of the communities throughout Ireland. It is now my great honour to introduce the Minister who is here today to officially launch the IMSA strategic plan. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Minister Jennifer Murnane O'Connor.
Good morning everyone, and I'm delighted to be here this morning in my own hometown of County Carlow. I remember when we were arranging this event, I said it has to get local. So that was the one thing we said, we keep it local. So first of all, I want to welcome my colleague Dr. Callahan, councillors Johnny Pender, William Patton, Ben Ward, and to everyone here today. It's absolutely a lovely facility here, and the men's sheds in Tullow really do, and I know there's something Carlow as well, men's sheds in Kilkenny and others around, so I want to welcome you all today. So this is an important milestone for the association, and it reflects your overall vision to support, advocate and promote men's shed across Ireland. And I want to commend the Men's Shed Association for their ongoing commitment to improving the health and well-being of men. And I mean, this plan is about as you said, a strategic plan for around the country, and I think that's so important. And we spoke about healthy cities and towns, and I was away last week, and Carlow County has been accredited. I received their accreditation with Councillor Andrea Dalton, so now Carlow is now accredited under Healthy Cities, and that in itself is absolutely marvellous. So we have a lot of work to do, and I want to thank the local authority who agreed to this. It was done through my own department, but it was important that Carlow was accredited, so that's really good news for us. While we have made a lot of progress in recent years, we know that men continue to face higher rates of illness and they die younger than women. But we also know that people are living longer, and that is factual. So with that as well, it brings its own challenges. So what we have to do now is look at people in the community as long as possible, and that is the plan of the HSE going forward, the department, and of course of our Sláinte Care Plan. And there's a clear and urgent need for us to continue our work to address the health inequalities facing men. So too many men still face barriers, whether it's accessing supports, and continue to suffer in silence, and we see that. Your efforts in the men's sheds are making a huge difference. Together we can build a society where every man feels supported and valued, and that's what this is all about. But the government is committed to that vision, and we need to work in partnership to achieve this. And we will continue to invest and lead the way so that every man has the best possible chance of living a long, healthy and connected life, regardless of age, background or where you live. The government is also committed to continuing to provide funding and support to the men's sheds and the Sheds for Life as well, which is hugely important, as they are a key part of the Sláinte Care, our overall health strategy. The HSE Men's Health Action Plan also recognises how important men's sheds are as a way of involving the community in health promotion, and this is really important. So for me, this is under my own remit of health and well-being. It's all about preventative, it's all about prevention, and it's all about overall healthcare and well-being to everyone. So what you offer in the men's sheds is a familiar and informal environment where men feel comfortable turning up, where they come and they love their cup of tea and their chat. It's also a social outlet as well. This safe inclusion and supportive space gives a sense of purpose and belonging, which is essential for well-being. This is very much in keeping with our vision of a Healthy Ireland, our national framework for improving the health and well-being of people in Ireland. So Healthy Ireland emphasises prevention, empowerment and community engagement, and the shed model reflects these values. The delivery of the Sheds for Life programme is an example of how men's sheds are making a real difference in supporting men on their journey for health and well-being. It demonstrates the positive impact that early intervention is trusted in community-based settings and can have a huge effect on an individual and their families, because we're also talking about families. So it's like, as Enda said, maybe if someone has retired, maybe has been sick, that they know you're coming here to a lovely place where you're meeting your friends, you're all sitting down, you're all chatting, but you're also making plans for what's going ahead as well. So my department now overall provides over 400,000 annually to support the Irish Men's Sheds and the Sheds for Life programme, alongside funding provided by the HSE. And as I mentioned earlier, we are committed to continuing this. I also want to acknowledge the ongoing support from my colleague in the Department of Rural and Community Development, the Gaeltacht, of course, Minister Dara Cleary, who contributes to the everyday today running cost of our sheds, helping to ensure their long-term sustainability. And you're right, there's a 3,000 grant there, but that is being worked on at the moment. I've had several meetings with Minister Dara Cleary, and we are looking at this, and I'm also looking at extra funding in my own department. But I think it is important to reflect on the issues of men's sheds in Ireland. As you said, Enda, since 2011, Ireland has the most sheds per capita, and at least 10,000 men visit a shed every week. Now that is some achievement, to say that there's 10,000 men that visit a shed every week. So we want the men's sheds to remain vibrant, accessible and resourced. We want to continue welcoming the new members and meeting the needs of their communities. It is predicted that we will have almost 500 sheds by the end of 2026, and this has to be applauded, and I want to congratulate all of you for your excellent work. I also want to acknowledge the contribution of the men's sheds and the role they play in building stronger, healthier and more connected communities. And I want to thank each of you who show up in the men's sheds every week after week after week, regardless of weather or of the seasons. I also want to thank our volunteers, the stakeholders, the local communities, and of course the Irish Men's Sheds Association and Egan for your leadership. I also would like to acknowledge the contribution of the board and the chairman of Murnane O'Connor. And I just think it's important now also to recognise, I see we have a lot of women here today as well. And go forward, part of my brief also is women's sheds. So working with the different departments now, women's sheds are also now going under the same umbrella, so that women's sheds also can access funding, because up until recently that wasn't happening. And I know working with the different departments now, we have secured that they are going to be all like the men's sheds. Women's sheds will be under the same umbrella, and we'll be able to look at funding for them. And I think it's good to mention that, because I see all the women here today and we're all helping out when we came in. So I'll just give you a round of applause. So I'm delighted to officially launch the new strategic plan, what's called Helping Men, Helping Communities. This plan is ambitious, and I thank everyone who contributed today, and I want to thank everybody for their work. It's like everything, nobody probably knows the amount of work that's done in the background. Even arranging this today, this is really excellent, and it's great to see such a crowd. I want to wish you all every success for the future as men's sheds continue to grow from strength to strength. Garbina Mahago, thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for those inspiring words and for officially launching the strategic plan today. Your presence here, along with the support of our elected representatives, partners, stakeholders, demonstrates the value that is placed on the men's shed movement and the positive contribution it makes to communities throughout Ireland. I would like to thank our speakers this morning, Frank Clark, Dylan MacDonald and Egan, for sharing their insights and helping mark this important occasion. A special thank you to Tullow Men's Shed for hosting us here today and for the tremendous work they do in their community. Finally, thank you to everyone who's travelled here to be with us this morning. The future outlined in this strategy can only be achieved through partnership, collaboration and the continued dedication of the people in this room. We look forward to working with you over the coming years, and we continue to help men and helping communities across Ireland. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to invite the Minister and some of the elected representatives to hang behind for a few photographs, but there are refreshments inside. It's it, Frank. Sorry. Beg your pardon.
We'll be all week and then you get the
Beg your pardon. Frank Morris.
Call him Mr. Morris. I'd be called Morris, you know, right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.